So Daniel 11:31, and we're going to be reading through to 35. And it starts out with the forces shall be mustered by him, and we're talking about the false prophet that tries to take place and defile the temple. And they shall defile the sanctuary fortress. Then they shall take away the daily sacrifices and place there the abomination of desolation. Those who do wickedly against the covenant he shall corrupt with flattery. But the people who know their sovereign shall be strong and carry out great exploits. And those of the people who understand shall instruct many. Yet for many days they shall fall by the sword and the flames, by captivity and plundering. Now when they fall, they shall be aided with a little help, but many shall join with them by intrigue, aided, and some of those of understanding shall fall to refine them, purify them, and make them white until the time of the end, because for the appointed time. It's still for the appointed time. We look at this and automatically we go to the tribulation and the hard times and all this, and I think that many times we get that out of proportion. Not that it's not going to be a serious time. It's going to be a time of trouble like it's never been. And you are going to have to be delivered by the miracles of Almighty Yahweh, or you're not going to be delivered at all. But we need to understand that Daniel had an awesome relationship with the Father. Now, Daniel obviously was living in covenant with the Father before he was ever captured and taken away. And guess what? Daniel had 3 good partners: Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, these 4 men were trying to do what they needed to do to be in covenant and please the Father. They were going about serving the Father the best they knew. They were not men of high esteem in the city or in the nation. They were men that were seeking to please the Father, walking in covenant. Now we need to understand that neither one of those men were great because of their self. They were great because the Father anointed them and the Father stood with them. Not because they were mighty men or strong or even violent men, but because they were dedicated and committed to his covenant. When they were brought forth and given charge to be kept and cared for, they brought them the meat from the king, and they said, "We don't want to eat the delicacies of the king." They would not eat the forbidden food that the Father forbid them to eat. Now, when somebody tells you that it's not important what you eat, that's not a big thing. Look here and see how big it was. These men would not eat the delicacies of the king. They would not eat defiled food. They were staying that focused on the Father's covenant and the Father's will. They did not have great abilities in the natural. They didn't have great forces. But by the power of Almighty Yahweh, He used these men because they were dedicated and committed to Him. Now what I'm saying to you tonight is we have a time that's coming on us in this world. We're talking about the tribulation, a time of trying like there's never been before. And when you say that, I mean, people say, well, it's going to be a time of trouble like it's never been before. I don't think they understand what's coming out of their mouth. Because there's been trials. I mean, you read the Word. Hundreds of thousands were died in death. Some of it was in judgment from the Father. Some of it was in battle. And most of it was, if we understand, was by the Father's hand. He either blessed or pulled down. What we need to know tonight in order to be able to be victorious in this time of trouble, we have to be committed to the Father, and we have to be focused on His kingdom, on His covenant, on His word, and walking in the commandments that He has given us, to obey those commandments and to keep those commandments and keep those statutes, to walk even as Yeshua walked here on this earth, to keep our focus on the kingdom, to keep our focus on Almighty Yahweh and His sovereignty, His mercy, and His goodness. We look at these four men. Every one of them had a strong trial or temptation that come against them. They didn't just wind up and be strong just because they sat around and did nothing. Every one of them made a strong decision of commitment before the miraculous deliverance took place. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refused to bow down to the king's image. They refused to bow down to it, knowing that if they didn't bow down to it, and if anybody prayed to any other deity than that they would be put in the fiery furnace. And when it was reported to the king that these Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they ignored you, they have just put you down like you're nothing, because they will not bow down to your statue. And he called them forth, and he challenged them to bow down. He said, is your sovereign able to deliver you from my hand? And their answer was, He is, and if He doesn't, still we will not bow down to your image. Even if we become a crispy critter, we will not bow down to your image. Now at this time, these men, three men, were not wrapped up in blessings from Almighty Yahweh. It was a trial, a hard time. Like they could have looked around and said, Father, why haven't you delivered me? Why did you let me get in this position, get in this this hole that I'm in and where I have no way to get out. Sometimes the Father puts us in a position where we have no way to get out, that we have to call upon Him and depend on Him to deliver us. And that's exactly what He did with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They got thrown in the furnace, and the fire was so hot that it killed the ones that threw them in there. But it did not harm them. Did not singe the hair on the head or the beard. There was not the smell of smoke on their clothing. And the king declared that if anybody put down or talked against the sovereign of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that they would be put to death. Look what the Father did with those three men in that time of trial. He got that king's attention and convinced him that there was only one true deity, Almighty Yahweh. And then we come up with another one of their partners. We come up with Daniel. And I love it. Daniel was so committed. He was so committed to the Father, to walking in the Father's ways. He was so committed to the anointing and the revelation of the Father that he refused to compromise in any way. And when eventually he was thrown in the dungeon because he would not compromise, he was thrown in the lion's den. And the king did everything he could to keep them throwing him in there because he loved Daniel. But he was bound by his word. And the laws of the Persians would not let him change it. So Daniel went in the lion's den. And the Father locked the jaws of the lions. And you know, he didn't only lock the jaws of the lions, but he must have put them to sleep or paralyzed them. Because a 700 or 800 pound lion could maul you, even though he couldn't eat you, he could maul you. So that there was just such a miracle worked in Daniel's life also. And then we come to the point where in Daniel, where the angels came and they ministered to him and give him revelation. Not one angel, but three. It is so obvious that Daniel was walking in covenant with the Father. It's so obvious that they were so committed to them that they did not consider their life, that they would surrender their life before they would violate the word of Yahweh. I wonder how many here tonight would surrender their life rather than offend Almighty Yahweh. It's something that we ought to think about. We ought to think about how committed we are not to offend Almighty Yahweh. He is our sovereign. He is our king. He is our Savior. And today, there's so many different congregations that are not walking in covenant with Almighty Yahweh. They're not keeping the Sabbath. They're not keeping the dietary laws. They're not keeping the laws, period. They are convinced and been taught that the laws have been done away with, been nullified. We need to understand that our salvation is walking in obedience to Almighty Yahweh, making Him our sovereign, our King, our deliverer, and putting our faith and our trust in Him to deliver us. He is sovereign over all heaven and earth. He is sovereign. There was a time when Antiochus Epiphanes brought an abomination into the temple. And many think this is an abomination that Daniel was talking about. And I'm thinking that that's part of it, but that's not all of it, because Yeshua talked about a time coming that was greater tribulation than any time it had been on earth. But if you look at Antiochus Epiphanes, he fulfilled every bit of Daniel's prophecy. Every bit of it. He brought the pig in, put it on the altar and slaughtered it, and demanded that the Israelites violate the covenant. And there was many of them that did. Even to the point that some of them even went and reversed the circumcision. And there's some that think this is the time that Daniel was talking about and they can relax. But let me tell you something. If this was part of Daniel's prophecy, it wasn't all of it, because there's a time still coming. And look how hard this time was that Daniel was in. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had to go through the fiery furnace. Daniel had to go to the lion's den. And Yeshua said that this trouble, or this time of trying, was going to be greater than anything that had come. Do you think it was a trial for Daniel or Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego? Do you think that was a trial for them? I believe it was very serious. We read these stories and say, well, oh, that was great. But we don't think about the emotions that they had to struggle and wrestle with in order to be faithful to Almighty Yahweh. They had to let the word of Almighty Yahweh and Almighty Yahweh's will override their desires and what they had to fear for their life. When we are walking in covenant with Almighty Yahweh, we have to fear offending Him, violating His word, breaking covenant with Him. We have to understand that Almighty Yahweh brought us to salvation through Yeshua HaMashiach, that we could walk before Him even as Yeshua walked. How many times did Yeshua break the law? None. Then that should be our goal, shouldn't it? Well, we shouldn't say, well, I know that I'm not supposed to do this, but no. We have to understand, and we have to be willing to die before we violate the covenant that Almighty Yahweh has set before us. It has to be that important to you. You have to be that committed. We're talking about here with these 4 people, Hebrew children, they were caught and put in prison. And the Father miraculously delivered them. But it's obvious as you read this that they were committed to the Father with everything that they had. They didn't have just a casual relationship with Him, but they were committed to Him with everything they had. And look how committed the Father was to them. I mean, that was miraculous beyond imagination. Can you imagine what must have been going on in Daniel's mind when they pitched him down in that lion's den? Those great big old smelly lions there. Can you imagine what must have been going on in Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's mind when the guards grabbed them up to throw them into the fiery furnace? We have to have victory over our emotions. We have to. We have to have victory over our emotions. It seems to me that a symptom of humanity is to disregard consequences. Many times we do not consider the consequences of our actions. I think most of the churches today, most of the congregations do not consider the consequences of their actions. They have no concept of the consequences of ignoring the commandments of Almighty Yahweh. To go along ignoring the consequences that have been set forth, they seem to disregard them. They seem to have no fear of them. And that's what the Father talks about when He talks about fearing Yahweh, is the consequences of not being in covenant with Him, the consequences of being on your own. Revelation, much different than what the experts had espoused. It's much different. The theologians tried to explain things away. The theologians try to justify things and minimize them. But the Father is very point blank. If you do this, this is going to happen. If you do this, this consequence will come upon you. And that we have to be in covenant with Him. If we're going to walk in His protection and His direction, we have to be in covenant with Him. We have to understand what His commandments are. And we have to be committed not to break His commandments in any area. I mean, not just a little bit. We don't sin just a little bit. Sin is sin. And when you sin, you have it. And you have to do something with it. The Father made us aware by Daniel. Daniel 12:4. But you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. But it don't talk about righteousness increasing. We have to understand that we are going to come upon some very tempestuous times. And we're going to have to understand that we have to be victorious in those times. That the Father used Daniel to explain to us what was coming on us. And I'm not saying that it will happen in our lifetime. However, I believe it will. But maybe some of us will escape it, because our age. We might leave before all that comes down. But you have to know that as a believer, you have to prepare for this time. You can't be unconcerned about the word of Yahweh, about lining up with it and submitting to it and be walking in it, not violating it, not transgressing it in any way. You have to be focused on the word of Yahweh, that is your life. That is the way you live. That's the way you talk, the way you act, the way you eat. It is your everything. I think the wicked today are going to become more wicked, that there is going to be a great divide between the righteous and the wicked. And it's not going to be like it is in many cases today. They have some of the attributes of Christianity with them, and sometimes it's hard to tell whether they're a Christian or whether they're, in the world. But I don't think that's going to be for much longer. I think you're going to find that the wicked are going to be wicked. They're going to be doing everything they can to cause you to fall, to pull you down. And I think we're going to have it in the government that is going to be working against us, trying to pull us down and making laws that you're going to have to be committed to stay strong before Almighty Yahweh, because I'm quite sure there are going to be some severe consequences for those who will not submit to the government or the rules and the laws of the government. I'm quite sure there's going to be plenty of them. Quite contrary to what many believe today, the carnal mind will not carry you through. Those who ignore the covenant will be passed over. That's serious, people. My heart bleeds for those who are in ignorance. My heart breaks for anyone who is in the danger of hellfire. I know I don't want to be, and I pray that I am not. But we have to be focused on keeping the word of Almighty Yahweh. There's so many who ignore the covenant will be passed over. They don't have any idea of what is going on or what to do. They'll be totally wrapped up in confusion. That's what Satan is. He's the author of confusion. We live and are protected by revelation from the Father. If He does not give us revelation, understanding, direction, and discernment, we don't have any hope. We have to have revelation from the Father. We have to have discernment from the Father. And guess what? It's the Father's choice whether He's going to give it to us or not. And if you run around all week just abusing the covenant and disregarding what the Father is saying to you, and you expect Him to give you this miraculous deliverance and revelation and understanding, you're misleading yourself. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. If you don't seek Him, He is not going to be revealing Himself to you. You have to seek Him. We live and are protected by the revelation of the Father. He shows us, makes us aware of what's coming on us. And sometimes we don't know that anything's coming on us, but He still delivers us. When this thing come on me a few weeks ago, I had no idea that anything was happening. And I tried to stand up, and my legs would not hold me up. That sudden. When I sat down, my legs were just fine. But when I tried to get up and walk, they wouldn't hold me up. We have the protection of the Father. I believe with all my heart that Satan tried to kill me and came very close to getting it accomplished. But the Father stopped it. The Father miraculously delivered me one more time. And I thank the Father. I bless His Kadosh name. But you have to know that it can come on you suddenly. That the devil ain't playing with you. The only protection you have is the Father. If the Father hadn't have been there, I believe the devil would have destroyed me just right off the bat. But Almighty Yahweh saved me. He gave me deliverance. Daniel 12:9 through 10. And he said, "Go your way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. Many shall be purified, made white, and refined. But the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand." This gives me hope for those who haven't got it right, quite right yet, but they do want to serve the Father, and have just been caught up in deception and confusion and don't have any idea where the right path is. I believe when things get hard, people are going to start seeking the right path. They're going to start seeking something that works, knowing that what they've got don't work. I believe it's going to be just like it was in Egypt, whenever the Pharaoh and all the Egyptians suffered all the plagues that came down. But Goshen didn't have to go through them. They did not suffer the plagues. And I believe it's going to be that way at the end time, that many are going to be suffering the curses that are coming down and coming against them. And the Almighty Yahweh is going to be delivering His people. And some of it might be through death. If a person's weak, the Father may deliver him through death. Either way is okay if we're delivered. Hope for those who are sincere but have been mistaught and can be purged. That the Father can purge them, make them white, put them through the fiery furnace, and purge them. This is yet another reminder that Yah will have mercy on whom He will, and have not on whom He will not. We need to know this day that we survive and we overcome by the mercy and the faithfulness and the righteousness of Almighty Yahweh. We do not make it on our own. It's not about our ability. It's about His blessings, His kadoshness, His mercy, and His righteousness. It is to our benefit to stay close to Almighty Yahweh. If you walk in covenant with Him, and if you seek to walk in obedience to Him, and you seek to submit to Him, He is your sovereign, He is your king. And even if death comes upon you and catches you unaware, you don't have to worry about it, because you are wrapped up in the kadoshness of Almighty Yahweh. You are His child, you are His sovereign, and you are not rebelling against Him in any way. You are doing everything you can to please Him. This is what we are set forth to do. This is what the Father has called us to be. Kadosh, kadosh, kadosh. And that in our actions we seek to be kadosh and righteous, even as He is kadosh and righteous. We seek to walk in it. We seek to be there, taking nothing for granted, knowing that through much study and search, we seek out our own salvation. If it was just something that was right there for you, just take off the shelf and not worry about it, why would you have to seek out your own salvation? Why would you have to work out your own salvation? People, it's not a setback and just let the world go by like we've been taught. You've got to do what you can to change the world. To change the world for the kingdom of Almighty Yahweh. You've got to do that. You've got to be busy in the kingdom. You love Him tonight? Man, I don't understand how people that don't know Him and rebel against Him, I don't know how they survive. I don't know how they survive. Only by the mercy of Yahweh, giving them a chance to be right. Blessed be His kadosh name.